Let's answer a lawyer's question today. Should you charge for an initial consultation? Welcome to the Life Counsel Lifecast podcast. I'm Jesse Bifulco, an estate planning and elder law attorney with 20 years of experience navigating the challenges of legal practice. On this show, I share strategies and stories that are specifically designed to help fellow attorneys build more effective, sustainable, and fulfilling law practices. We'll break down critical topics that impact your professional growth, your work-life balance, and ability to serve clients, always with a focus on actionable advice grounded in real-world experience. I'm not going to tell you something that's a theory. I'm going to tell you things that I did and that worked for me. Today, we're tackling a hot-button issue that comes up often among lawyers. Should you charge for an initial consultation or offer it for free? This isn't just about policy. It's about defining what your ideal practice looks like and setting yourself up for long-term success. Let's dive into the data, the decisions, and the strategies that can revolutionize your legal career. In an attorney forum I belong to, a lawyer asked if she should charge a fee or give free consultations. Then I realized the answer is going to be too long for a forum, but a perfect subject for a podcast. So the answer to this question introduces strategies that, as I said before, revolutionized my law practice, and I'm sharing them now so that you can revolutionize yours. Do you want to be able to take time off on the weekends, or take vacations, or hire an associate? Do you want to be able to leave the office at 5 p.m.? Do you want to consistently meet income goals? If you do it the right way, contemplating whether to charge for consultations will force you to define what your ideal practice looks like. It's that mythical place where personal and professional life meet in harmony. We'll call it Greenland. Let me tell you a little story about working smarter and not harder. My dad was amazing. At the age of 72, he stepped down from the bench and formed a law partnership with me. He worked harder than most 25-year-olds. For me, it was a great refresher course in the value of hard work. My father trained me as a kid, kind of like Mr. Miyagi from that movie, The Karate Kid. Only instead of polishing old cars, I had to move giant hostas from the backyard to the front yard, and the following summer move them back again. Or spend hours under the hot sun pulling up knotweed. For those of you who don't know what knotweed is, it's kind of like bamboo, and some people call it milkweed. It has roots that run all over the place, and it grows about 5 feet tall. It's tough and back-breaking work, and when you pull it, this milky substance leaks out. I remember one particularly arduous day, pulling up knotweed, thinking I was making progress, getting deeper and deeper into the thicket, only to come across a little sanctuary my brother Jimmy had cleared. He'd flattened a square of the stuff and was taking a nap right in the middle of it, hidden by this tall palisade of weeds. Well, the way I attacked and resented the knotweed was the way I attacked the work of my first law practice. I didn't know why, right? Because I didn't have a plan. That's kind of the point of this podcast. I didn't know why I was clearing the milkweed. I just knew I had to do it, right? And the harder I worked, the quicker I would get it done. So it was with that level of effort, a kind of machine of production, that I attacked the establishment of my young law practice as a young lawyer. I didn't realize then that effort alone wasn't enough. You need to work smarter and not harder. 10 years later, my law practice got a reboot when I moved from New York to Maine. I had the time to be more deliberate about things. I used that opportunity to look back on the last decade and consider what I had done right and what I could have done better when building my first law firm. What I learned was that hard work is, in fact, indispensable, but hard work plus metrics can move mountains. Hard work equals success, but hard work plus metrics equals a more sustainable lifestyle. And in the end, it's going to be a practice that's more rewarding for you. In considering the burning question, should a lawyer give free consultations, the key to the answer is going to be metrics. When you don't have any clients, in the beginning, when you're starting out, right? When you don't have any clients, you're reluctant to charge anything. You're just happy someone came in the door. You're also reluctant to reject any new client who walks in the door, even if their case is not a good fit for your practice. Both are mistakes. When you have more time than clients, the greatest investment you can make is in collecting information or data and combining that data with your increasing experience. And that's the heart of the lesson I learned. Right from the beginning, you need to set up a system that's designed to collect data about your new prospective clients, what you might call prospects for short, because you can't go back in time and collect that crucial information if you haven't. So even though it feels like you're slowing things down by creating a system designed to collect information, that effort pays off in spades later on. I say slowing things down because remember, someone's got to collect that information and store it somewhere, whether it's in a CRM, that is a customer relationship management program, or a spreadsheet. What you're doing is not a waste of time, but building something that will be invaluable to your future self. Invaluable to what, you might ask? What you're building by making the effort to collect information is a design-enabling time machine. It's gonna be a decision-making tool. It's going to enable you to make better decisions, right? If your decisions are based on information, they're more likely to yield results. So the very device that will enable time off on weekends, vacations, growing the business, it's also going to enable you to consistently meet your income goals. It's going to be your ticket to Greenland. Well, getting to Greenland is not possible without data. And if you don't collect the data, you have nothing to base your decision on when you ask yourself, or a forum for that matter, the question, should I give free consultations or charge? Not having data is like flying an airplane with no instrument panel. You're in the fog trying to decide, should I go right or left if I want to hit Greenland? The answer is, what do your instruments say? And what is the data that you need for a fully functioning control panel? Where do your clients come from? What percentage of new meetings actually results in a fee? What is your average fee per client? This is the information. This is going to be your compass. This is going to be your altimeter, your airspeed gauge. The very first and most unbreakable rule of your practice is that your firm only makes money when you engage a new paying client. You have only so much time in a day, so it's absolutely mission critical that you do everything possible to make sure that every new meeting is likely to result in a new paying client. But not just any client, a client who you can do a great job for. Let's talk about the price you pay for talking on the phone. As lawyers, we're used to giving advice. Most of us enjoy talking to people, especially when we can help. But if we spend all day talking to people on the phone and have no money to show for it, we go broke and can't help anybody. That's one reason why calendar control is also mission critical. Separating yourself from your calendar is also a good idea. In other words, have somebody else setting your calendar because you're, this affable, nice person who just wants to help people. Unfortunately, sometimes you're going to just take stuff just because you think you can, give somebody advice or talk to them all day. But the person controlling your calendar has got to adhere to the principle that I articulated as the very first and unbreakable rule of law practice as a business. Your firm only makes money when you engage a new paying client. So when my most excellent and super talented office manager, who for a long time had been managing my calendar and then trained someone else to manage my calendar when she took over general management of the firm. Well, when she left, she took a leave of absence to start her family. And when that happened, the world at large got better because she's a great mom and has 2 beautiful kids now. But Jessie world got a little worse because I had no office manager. Luckily for me, my wife came on board and she controls my calendar. But she may have grasped the unbreakable rule a little too firmly because my calendar doesn't see daylight anymore. But anyway, here's the point. When your time is fully booked, every new prospective client or prospect meeting comes at a cost. And it's the cost of saying no to something else. That is, that's called opportunity cost. So deciding whether to charge for that first meeting isn't just about money. You should ask yourself this question when trying to decide. How does charging or not charging increase the likelihood that your meetings will result in qualified leads? The decision is about three things: clarity, fit, and sustainability. The three pillars that are going to ensure that your time is spent wisely. So let's start with clarity. Clarity means both you and the prospective client understand what the meeting is for. The client knows what they need and knows or has been clearly informed that you offer that specific service. You, in turn, know exactly what you're offering in this meeting. That means the exact service and the price you're going to charge. What's the fee? Fit. Fit refers to whether this person aligns with the type of client your practice is designed to serve well. Not every lead is a good lead. Some people will need services you don't offer. Some aren't ready to engage. Your intake process should help you evaluate whether this is a relationship worth pursuing before the time is blocked on your calendar. Now, let's go to sustainability. Sustainability speaks to the long-term health of your practice. If you're giving away high-value time to unqualified leads, you won't have time to spend on paying clients who you can help. And if that dividend of extra time is something you want to spend on a pro bono case or help, somebody who can't afford to hire you, you're not going to have that dividend if you're not following that other premise. If you're not taking, qualified leads who are going to engage you. So if you're not spending most of your working time on paying clients who you can help, you won't have time to take vacations or not work on weekends or leave by 5 p.m. It's like you're giving away all of your free time when really none of your time is free. So you need systems and boundaries that allow you to consistently deliver high-quality work to the clients who will benefit from it the most without burning out or missing out on more meaningful engagements. So how do you get to a place where your calendar is full? It's full of qualified leads. By qualified, I mean people who you know you can help, who can afford your services and are ready to hire you. Okay, it's people you can help who can afford to pay you for what you're doing, but they're also ready to go forward. You won't know what the best policy is until you start tracking the data. So back to, whether we charge or not for a consult. So if you don't have data, you make your best guess. That's where you start. So the young attorney who was on that forum asking if she should charge for a consult fee, and sometimes it's more experienced attorneys asking as well. It's you're starting out sometimes without any information. So what do, right? Well, you make a guess, and that's okay because you got to start somewhere. At the end of this podcast, I'm going to give you 3 discrete actionable steps you must take to build the instrument panel that's going to help you navigate to Greenland. And Greenland, remember, is the place where you make the income you earned by training and preparing, but also have a life too. So start with a policy and then let the data refine it. At first, it makes sense to start with a simple policy. For example, charge $350 for every initial consult. That creates some structure. It protects your time, but really, charging is about incentives. Do you want to attract more prospects by offering a free consult? Or would it make more sense to charge and then credit the fee toward their engagement if they actually hire you? So here's the trade-off. If you charge $350 and spend an hour, did you miss the chance to land a $5,000 case instead? Only you can decide what's worth it. But pick a policy to start with and stick to it for a while. And that's why it's so important to qualify your leads. You don't want someone who's willing to spend $350 for an hour and never return. You want someone who understands the value of a full service and is willing to pay for it every time. Once you make your starter policy, track what happens. Don't change your approach until you have real data to justify changing it. We have to guess in the beginning, but once we have a readout on an instrument in our panel, we want to follow that all the way to Greenland. We stop guessing once we have our information. Maybe you convert 100% of your real estate consults. Sounds great until you realize those cases only had a 12% profit margin, whereas other practice areas maybe have a 40% profit margin. So that high conversion rate distracted you from more valuable work. Policies have reasons. You make your policies predicated on your goal and what your data shows you. So write down the reason you made your policy, whether it's the basic, I'm starting out and here's what my hypothesis is. I think, if I charge a consult fee, I'm going to get this result. If I charge more or less, or I'm deciding to credit the client at the client meeting, if they go forward on that day, write it down. So a year from now, you'll remember why you made the decision. And when it's time to change it, you can see if your hypothesis was correct, if it's borne out by your data. I'm telling you that you may forget and repeat a practice that you deliberately abandoned a couple of years before. That's another reason you write it down. Create for your law firm what we call an institutional memory. Have a file for this stuff. Write it down, be able to justify what you do. But keep in mind, whatever policy you come up with in the beginning is just your starting hypothesis. Over time, as you gather information about where your best clients come from, how often consults convert to engagements, what your average client revenue looks like, and how much time you lose to no shows or low quality leads, you'll be able to refine that policy into a strategy that's both client friendly and business smart. It's about clarity for clients and confidence for you, because once you have that policy, you're going to feel confident in offering your service. So why you might start out answering that question, should I charge or not, by charging? Well, you might start out by charging because if they have to pay to talk to you, they have some skin in the game. The negative of that is that sometimes a high-value client doesn't know they need you and may never talk to you for a fee. But until you have the data to refine your policy and your strategy, a simple consult fee may be the best bet. It signals that your time is valuable. It sets the tone for a professional, goal-oriented relationship. It discourages just browsing behavior and attracts those serious about working with you. At the same time, you can, and you should, make exceptions. You're not a robot, right? You don't want to make an exception for every single case. Otherwise, you got no policy at all. But there should be reasons why you make exceptions. For instance, you might decide, I won't charge for clients referred by trusted professionals. If someone calls with a Medicaid crisis or a very specific goal, I'll waive the consult fee to get them the help they need fast. These exceptions aren't weaknesses in your policy. They're based on a couple of assumptions that the data will probably bear out. If a client is sent by a referral source, they're likely to convert, okay? So if another trusted professional has said, look, you should go and speak to this lawyer, they can help you, they're halfway there to hiring you, right? It's probably going to be like an 80 or 90% conversion rate. So if you're charging them a consult fee, you might discourage the meeting. The other exception is about having the opportunity to engage a likely high-paying client. If you do start out charging, those two exceptions make sense, even without data to back it up. The next thing to remember is the policy is a guiding principle and not a wall. You're not closing a door by charging. You're simply saying, let's respect both our time and start this relationship intentionally. And as your data grows, your clarity will too. You'll know when the consult is the beginning of a high-value client relationship and when it's just the end of a one-off Q&A. What I mean by that is some folks will view that $350 as an ownership interest in your very being. They'll ask to record the consult. They'll come in with 100,000 questions as though they're going to write down how to design and build the estate planning equivalent of a nuclear aircraft carrier. So if the idea in your policy was to have an opportunity to prove that you're qualified to do a good job for them and then get a full planning matter, well, just forget it with this particular kind of person. Then they'll keep calling to clarify things you said. So once you have some data, that's when your policy becomes based in real-world data and stops being a guess. This is where the rubber meets the road. Charging or not charging for an initial consultation should be based on a strategic analysis of your opportunity cost, conversion rates, and the value of your average engagement. Let me repeat that. A strategic analysis of your opportunity cost, your conversion rates, and the value of your average engagement. So how do you do that? You need to work it out on paper or more likely in a spreadsheet. What information to collect that will deliver those valuable metrics, right? You're going to write it out and you're going to collect it. So let's start with a conversion rate. A conversion rate sounds complicated, but it's not. Here's how to figure out your conversion rate. Take the total number of meetings and divide that by the number of engagements, and that's your conversion rate. It is the percentage of all meetings that result in a new client. The sooner you've started collecting that kind of data, the sooner you'll be able to put it to use. And here's the decision-making process. The first step in the process is to run the numbers. What's the opportunity cost? Assume your average billable hour or project generates a known revenue, and your calendar is fully committed. If you charge $350 for a consult and book 1 hour, that's your guaranteed revenue. You got $350. But what if instead you use that hour for a prospective client meeting that might result in a $5,000 case? Well, to decide, multiply the conversion rate for that type of consult by the average value of the engagement. Compare that to the guaranteed consultation fee. For example, if you have a 60% conversion rate from a particular referral source and your average engagement from that referral source for this kind of matter is $5,000, then multiply your conversion rate, which is 0.6 times 5,000, and that equals $3,000. So in that case, charging $350 for a random lead would leave $2,650 on the table. But this only holds true if the referral source and client type are, good, strong leads, right? They convert well, and for that particular offering, you're going to get that money. Which leads us to the next consideration. Step 2, qualify the lead. So what are they coming in for, and where are they coming in from? Not all prospective clients are equal. You must segment them by source. That means the referral. So where did they come from? Did they come from a trusted referral source, or was this just a cold call from a Google search? And then you have to segment them by service type. Service type as in, is it a high net worth estate plan or a Medicaid crisis matter or a will-only inquiry? What about basic demographic indicators? The geography, like where are they coming from, right? Which county or city, their town that you practice in. The family structure, the urgency of need. Here are a couple of sample guidelines. For high converting, high value sources, for example, referrals from allied professionals, don't charge because the upside is strong. For low converting, low value leads, especially where clients are shopping around, either charge a consult fee or screen them out entirely. Now for step number 3, define the purpose of the meeting. Ask what the goal of the consult is. When you're trying to decide the purpose of the meeting, don't forget the unbreakable rule of law practice management, which I'll repeat again. The very first and most unbreakable rule is that your firm only makes money when you engage a new paying client. That doesn't mean you don't use your time for other purposes, but that you should be your primary concern in calendar management of attorney time is going to be, we need to prioritize getting those new paying engagements in the door, right? At least until we reach our break even, which I'm going to get to in a minute. So is it a relationship building session that leads to a larger plan? What's the purpose of the meeting? Is it a one-off Q&A that offers little long-term value? Is it a triage where it's likely they need urgent help but don't necessarily know it themselves? So if the consult is primarily sales-oriented for a profitable service, don't charge if the lead is likely to convert. General rule. Charge if the lead is unlikely to convert and the consult becomes the product. If the consult is the service, then you should always charge. And that's a business plan that some people pursue, but I don't recommend it. So step 4, create a system for whoever's managing your calendar so they can qualify leads before putting them on the calendar. We'll call that person an intake specialist, just to give them a name. So you need to tell the intake specialist what to look for when prioritizing calendar appointments. In other words, the intake specialist needs a profile to match to the caller so he or she can know whether or not to give them an appointment. That starts with identifying inquiries that are likely to result in a high-value engagement. So if Gladys calls and she's referred by Bob the CPA and she has an estate worth $4 million, that may look like this profile to the intake specialist. The wife of a married couple with children in her mid-60s with adult children with an estate that accommodates retirement and inheritance, referred by a trusted professional, and has an 85% conversion rate to a $5,000 fee. That matter is put on the calendar immediately and it's explained to the prospect. The client coordinator is going to say to her that ordinarily we do not offer free consultations, but in respect of her relationship from the referral source, that's, Bob the CPA, we're happy to offer her a free consultation. So you're going to develop a lead qualification matrix that helps your intake specialist sort prospects at intake. This takes some training and experience, but it's well worth it. Because at the end of the week or month or quarter or year, you're going to see remarkable results in your bottom line. And you'll feel good about having helped people that you're confident you can do an excellent job for. Step 5. Here are some final recommendations for how to determine if you give a free consultation. If your time is scarce, and it is, treat it like an asset. A $350 consult fee should be thought of as a filter, not a revenue stream. When charging, clearly communicate the value of the meeting. Even include a follow-up summary or action plan. When not charging, do it with intention because the data shows it's worth your time. So now, as promised, here are actionable steps in explicit detail to help you build your own instrument panel on the airplane that is your law firm and navigate to the place you want to be, a place of work-life balance, a place where you feel good about helping people and earn a good living at the same time. We call it Greenland. This is basic stuff that you should do right now if you haven't done it already. Step number 1, the break even. Make a spreadsheet that lists all your monthly expenses. List all your monthly expenses in a spreadsheet and make sure you include your salary. That's your break even. You need to generate at least that much revenue each month just to break even. Step 2, divide your break even by your average fee per engagement. That is the number of new client engagements you're going to need each month to stay afloat. Step 3, make a model calendar and add it to the number of client meetings and add to it the number of client meetings you need each week to meet your break even, right? So let's say you need 12 meetings. You're going to tell your intake specialist, look, each month we should have at least 12 of this kind of meeting, right? So she can mark them off as she gets them and prioritize them over other meetings. So let me give you an example. If your break even is $30,000 per month and your average engagement is $2,500 and your conversion rate is 60%, that means you're going to need 20 new meetings per month to land the necessary 12 new engagements just to stay in business. Assuming you're starting out and you don't have much data, now you need to know what data you need to track. If you're doing the work yourself, you need to create a form. If you have an intake specialist, someone who takes new appointments, manages the calendar, that person needs to track certain information for each new prospect, each new prospective client. And it's going to be beyond the basic contact information. So, and that's really critical, right? Because you need information to make good decisions. So here's the minimum amount of information your intake specialist should be noting. 1, we need to note down what they said their problem or their issue or their concern was. Why? Because clients speak a different language than lawyers. And over time, you're going to have a way to translate their concern into your matter type, into the, that matter you're trying to get. We want to qualify these people, right? And it's like it's your Rosetta Stone. You have this database of people who describe their problem in certain language, and that's going to translate into an estate plan or a Medicaid matter or high net worth, or whatever. When Joe or Mary calls or emails your office, they're not going to identify their problem in your language. And your intake specialist will not know either until you build your Rosetta Stone, right? So you have to eventually come up with a chart and a script for the intake specialist to more accurately assess, is this a matter type that we take? And how valuable to the firm is this matter type? Incidentally, that's called qualifying the lead. That is this someone we can help? Am I communicating with the decision maker? How likely are they to hire our firm? Number 2, we need to track where they came from. Super important. Again, over time, you'll see patterns of where the most valuable and highest converting clients come from. But you're only going to see that if you track where they came from. This will inform your intake specialist the priority to put on that prospect's new initial meeting. But if you don't track it, you'll never know. If you do spend any money on marketing, you'll also use this information for return on investment metrics. Which means, if you spend $5,000 on a marketing campaign, you want the people to tell you if they came from that marketing campaign so you can attribute their income, their revenue that they give you to that campaign, right? So if you spend $5,000 on the marketing campaign, but it brings in $100,000, that's going to help you calculate your return on investment. 3, we need to track the meeting result. Did the prospect show up? Did they reschedule? Did they engage at the first meeting? 4, we need to track the resulting fee from the meeting. Sounds pretty basic, but you'd be surprised how few attorneys track that information, all those things. If you don't have all this information in a folio somewhere, it becomes really difficult to extract it for the purpose of making a report. So even though the fee information is down the road, it has to be kept with other information you're tracking. If it's in a spreadsheet, it should be a continuous spreadsheet, not a different page for every single client, because then you can't process that into a report. But most attorneys now are using CRM for this. I think it's worthwhile looking into. There are certain computer softwares that will help you keep track of that information, but also export it in a way that you can make reports. There's other information that I personally track, but this is a good start. We in my firm, we also have scripts and different workflows that cover follow-up and more. In other words, I have a specific workflow for estate administration versus estate planning versus probate versus guardianship procedures or whatever you're going to do. The steps and the qualification are going to be different. And I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of that in future podcasts, but I hope this has been helpful. As you could probably tell, I love this stuff and I love to perfect my processes. And I also love the fact that it's given me a much better practice. It's made things more predictable in terms of income. It's given me some freedom, right? Because imagine if you know that you've met your number in the month and you've exceeded it even, then you're going to take fewer appointments in that month, right? And then maybe you and your wife can go to Sebago Lake. Anyway, so now I hope we've helped you answer the question, should I charge a consult fee? The answer is, first decide what your goal is. Do you want to simply work harder and harder and pull the, knotweed out day in and day out without getting anywhere, and hope things work out? Or do you want to fly straight to Greenland? I'm Jesse Bifulco, and I'm host of the Livestream podcast from Life Counsel. And I hope you will like and subscribe and continue to watch my podcasts. Thank you.